Good evening, everyone. I'm Nick Doty, Senior Technologist at the Center for Democracy and Technology, and it's genuinely such a pleasure to be here to celebrate the 30th anniversary of W3C with you all. For those who aren't familiar already, the Center for Democracy and Technology is a nonpartisan, nonprofit organization fighting to advance civil rights and civil liberties online. We shape technology policy, governance, and design with a focus on equity and democratic values. Now, CDT was an early organizational member of the World Wide Web Consortium in the 1990s, and my predecessors at CDT have been participating in W3C standardization since at least 1995. And I'm honored to be able to continue that long-time tradition of civil society participation and to be here to speak about the work that we are all engaged in to support human rights and web standards. Over those past 30 years, the web has been, I think, an incredible boon for humanity and for human rights. You've heard some of those examples already. There may not be a singular source of human rights, but the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, adopted in 1948, should be especially meaningful to this community because of its consensus development by countries from around the world. If you look through that important text, I see the impact of the web in supporting a number of freedoms and rights. The freedom of expression, the freedom of assembly and association, freedom from discrimination, the human right that is access to public services, the right to education, the right to work, perhaps fundamentally the right to participate in cultural life. In other words, we use the web now for political organizing, for news reporting, for social connections, for healthcare, for interacting with our governments, our employers, our schools, our friends and family. It's where we work and learn, it's where we speak up and where we listen. And W3C has played an important role in making those rights and freedoms a reality through the collaboration that we do on standards and interoperability, so that you can access all those websites with all those different types of devices and software. That recognition has been seen at the international level too. The United Nations Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights recognized that importance and the role of technical standards in particular in a recent report to the Human Rights Council. That report cites heavily the work of W3C as an example of considering human rights impacts in technical standard setting. And anniversaries like this are a fine time to reflect on those achievements and their importance to a growing number of people around the world. But as the web has become an essential part of public and community life, we must also realize the very significant threats to human rights online. This is not an exhaustive list, but certainly those threats include surveillance and threats to privacy. That's where I have spent much of my career, where many of you have seen me discussing issues in your working groups. It's also threats like discrimination, harassment, and abuse. There are threats like censorship, threats to freedom of expression and association, and more fundamentally, threats to security, safety, dignity, or our ongoing sustainability. In recognizing those threats, we acknowledge, I think, a weighty and urgent responsibility to protect users and to protect society in our standards work. 30 years ago, it was possible to log off and leave the web behind for a time. Now, for people in many places around the world, including people living under dangerous and oppressive regimes, that's simply not an option. We need to think about standards as if lives depend on them, because in fact they do. Now, all those threats recognized, I remain an optimist about the potential for technology, especially the web, to strengthen human rights, that tomorrow can be better than today. And to live up to that promise, our community will need to recommit itself to the essential work of supporting human rights in the design of web technology. So human rights must not be an afterthought to the work that we're doing. In today's world, there cannot be human rights offline if they aren't protected online. And they can't be protected online without the careful work of the people here today, the people online, among many others. I'm so proud of the work that's already ongoing, including the ethical web principles from W3C TAG, the privacy principles, which I hope will be among our first statements published from the W3C. the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines and other work to make websites accessible to all. Internationalization you heard about as an important role for crossing borders and languages. From our colleagues at IETF, there's a recently published set of guidelines for human rights protocol and architecture considerations. And I'm most especially proud of W3C's horizontal review process, that we consider these cross-cutting concerns across all of the web standards work that we do. Still, there's more to be done. As an open, multi-stakeholder standard-setting body, W3C has this precious opportunity to include, to collaborate on, to address, and proactively support human rights in web standards and web technology. This is not a matter for some other group to fix, but for us as a technical and as a human community. We need to consider human rights in all the work that we do in the W3C at the next 30 years. That includes reviews, to be sure, but it also includes the development of new standards and technology and revisiting existing tech. And to be successful, we must be more broadly inclusive of participation from around the world. To return to the text of that historical document that I encourage you all to read, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, one article really stands out at the end of that document that, quote, "Everyone has duties to the community," Article 29. "We are here to celebrate the achievements of the standards-based web, but also to recognize our duties to the community in supporting human rights and web technology." I most sincerely look forward to continuing that important work with you all. Thank you.